My daughter's names are Hazel Marie and Violet Jane. And what I remember most about them, the experience is a little different for us. Violet was born first. We got to spend time just with her. And the thing I remember mostly about her was just how similar she looked to Eleanor and to Catherine, just with her facial features. And with Hazel, I just remember just how lanky she was. She was a very lanky and long-limbed little baby, and she was quite a bit bigger than Violet was. And that, for me, that's the thing just when I close my eyes, that's the thing I see mostly.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us.
I'd like to thank you, Dave, for coming on and talking with me, and thank you for coming and talking about your children. We talked a little bit beforehand, just you and I, and you're a pretty cool cat. We talked about a couple of your hobbies, but for the listening audience, tell us about your very 80s car that you're restoring and fixing and driving and all that.
Sure, yeah. I drive a 1988 Fox Body Mustang. It's my summer car. It gets parked in my garage over winter time, and it's kind of the family car, I guess you'd say. I've had it for about 10 years now, and we once in a while we'll pile in the family and go for a drive or go to local Cars and Coffee. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy working on it, and I put a lot of time and effort into it, and it's really fun.
Yeah,
It's blue. It's a 5-speed, 5-liter, and it's not fast by any means by today's standards. Cars from the factory now come with 6, 7, 8,000 horsepower. So by no means is this Mustang fast, but it's still a lot of fun, and it gets the adrenaline going for sure.
and if you're driving the speed limit, it doesn't have to have 1,000 horsepower, right?
No, that's very true. Although it is fun to get up to the speed limit
Very fast.
in a quick fashion. Yeah.
Well, sweet. Well, thanks. And just to let you guys know, he does have a little bit of a northern neighbor accent. So when he talks about parking the car in the garage for the winter, it's probably about a 10-month parking in the garage, because I don't know, the Canadian winters are 90% of the year, right?
Well, it's not that bad. I would say in this province, you're probably guaranteed to get 4 or 5, maybe 6 months of winter. It depends on the season, right? This year it's been great. It's October, and it's going to be, I think, 10 or 12 degrees above 0 Celsius.
Yeah.
I don't know what that
Yeah.
is in Fahrenheit, but
Yeah,
it's going to be a nice day, a nice fall day. So summer has lasted well into the fall this year, which is really nice. So
yeah, well, that's good.
it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, doom and gloom is, who knows what that is nowadays with all the
That's
change.
that's a good point. The world's a weird place, but no, it does get down in the middle of January, February. It's not uncommon to wake up and see minus 45 degrees Celsius. With a wind chill. I mean, a couple of years ago, there was a couple mornings where it was like minus 55, 56 with the wind chill. So it gets cold. It's hard. It's a hard cold. So that's the worst part about being up here, is just how cold it gets in the wintertime.
Now, the funny thing, negative 40 degrees Celsius and negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit are the same,
right? Yeah.
And I've seen just below, I think the coldest I saw was about negative 45 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, that's cold.
And that was instant frostbite. If you don't, if you're not careful, you could lose the tip of your nose really quickly. So
yeah, it doesn't take long, and your car is super mad at you when you start at minus 45. It's cold, no doubt about it.
Don't want to do much in the cold.
Nope, definitely not. And you got to go into work, drive into work. Oh, it's cold. but
Yeah.
whatever. It makes you tough, it makes you hard in a way. So I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad somebody doesn't mind. You know, here in Salt Lake, we've got pretty moderate winters. We get, I think, in the wintertime, I don't know, Celsius maybe like -1 or 2
Jeez,
most
hey, that's
days.
it?
Yeah. Well,
Wow.
it will dip down to maybe -10, but it's not.
That's a
It's not.
dream.
Yeah.
That's a
It's
song.
yeah. Put your shorts on and go.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
geez, I wouldn't even know. That'd be incredible to
Yeah.
just not be that cold over the winter time.
Yeah. Well, in the mountains, we get a lot of snow up in the mountains. In the valley last year, we got quite a bit of snow, but yeah, it's a nice, pleasant cold. It's not a
Yeah,
harsh. It's not a
that's
harsh cold.
manageable. No, that's very manageable.
Yeah.
I'd welcome that. I'd welcome that kind
Yeah.
of weather for sure.
And I'm a fat, hairy guy, so I like, I, I put my shorts on in that weather too. So
When you've been outside in -40, yeah, -10, yeah, you could have some
yeah,
shorts
it's
on. We'll
great.
go sit out on the deck and have a drink
Yeah.
because it's
Put
nice out.
all you need is a flannel shirt, and you're great.
Yeah, you're good to go. Yep.
Well, wonderful.
Uh,
Well, let's talk about you, and your wife's name is Catherine, Kat. How long ago did you guys meet? How did you guys meet? Let's talk with the beginning.
we met. We were both working. We were both going to university at the time in Saskatoon, and we met working for a car rental company. I needed a job going through school, so I
Yeah,
got a job, and she just happened to be there. I stumbled across her. That's kind of how we met. And at the time, she was dating somebody at the time, and had been for a long time. So I figured out fairly quickly that she was off the market, so to speak. So we were just friends, just kind of casual friends. And then I left. I finished my university, and then kind of left the job, and then I went out and got a job with the Canadian Forces. And then I didn't really see her for I guess it was a couple years, 2 or 3, probably 2 years after that. So there was
mhm,
a bit of a lag. But then yeah, we just kind of reconnected just by, I think, luck for the most part. I think my sister ran into her, I think just at a mall or something, just randomly. I was like, oh yeah, yeah, I haven't talked to her for a long time.
it's been a while.
Might as well just reach out and say hi. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I think we started dating when we're basically the same age. She's like, I think 6 or 7 months older, but I think we were 21. I think when we started dating, 21 or 22. I think 21. And then yeah, we got married in oh geez, when was that? 2014. Married in 2014.
Oh,
So yeah, we were together, I think, for 4 years at that point when we got
yeah.
married. So that's kind of our
Well,
story. So
that's
that's the
very
short
nice.
short and sweet of it.
Yeah. And did you guys move around, or was it pretty much like, hey, set down roots where we met and where we dated, and
Yeah,
uh,
we didn't move anywhere. She's from a town just outside Saskatoon, and so her family's all pretty local.
mhm,
And then I grew up in the Saskatoon area. My parents moved here when I was like 2, so we,
yeah,
we grew up here. This is where all of our family is. And when I was in the military, I had the chance to travel around the country quite a bit.
yeah,
I've been to both coasts and a lot of the major cities. And I always liked coming back to Saskatoon. It's a really nice city. It's a nice size. It has all the things. It's really pretty. It's got a nice river flowing through it. It's very picturesque, and I've always liked coming back to it. I've been to the Torontos and the Vancouvers and all that,
yeah.
and while those places are fun to go for periods of time, I always really like coming back to Saskatoon. So we decided to just settle down here, and we moved to kind of like a little suburb city outside Saskatoon, about 5 minutes. So that's kind of where we bought our house when we got married.
When a place is home, it's home. So
Yeah, it is. And we knew that we wanted to have a family. That was something that we kind of talked about before we got married.
yeah,
So we both decided that we wanted our kids to be in close proximity to their grandparents. We decided to stay around here because we didn't want to be across the country or something. We wanted
Right.
our grandparents to be involved for a few different reasons. So that's why we decided to stay.
Well, that's good. Is there anything that you guys together like to do? You work on your Mustang. Does she have her own pink hot Mustang or?
No, she doesn't. She's not really into cars and that kind of stuff. She likes to read, she likes to sew. So we kind of have like separate-ish kind of hobbies like that.
Yeah.
But we traveled a little bit when we were kind of first dating. Didn't really go too many faraway places, but we like to travel and just hang out, and we like to eat food. We're kind of, I guess, foodies. I guess, if you
Hey.
had to label us with something called foodies. So we like to go out and eat and try different things. And we used to play frisbee quite a bit when we were younger. So we'd always just go to a park and throw around the frisbee. And that was actually kind of how I proposed to her back in the day, was with a frisbee kind of thing. I tied the ring to this frisbee and I threw it, and she caught it. So
You got some faith in your knot tying skills.
yeah, well, I was in the Navy, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
confident. But yeah, no, we just like to hang out, just to hang out together. I really enjoy just being with her, doing really whatever.
Yeah.
I'm pretty relaxed that way. As far as like things that we do together, like I know some couples have their hobbies that they both love to do together, but
Yeah.
no, we just like spending time together, just doing life, whatever that means.
Enjoying each other's company is fabulous. So,
Yeah, it is. It is. And one thing I will say about Catherine is, I mentioned I was pretty handy. I like to build things, work on stuff. So when it comes to the house, when we bought the place, the backyard was totally undeveloped, right? There was no landscaping done. So we developed our backyard ourselves, did all the work ourselves, and we do work very well together on stuff. We're really good. If we owned a contracting outfit or something, we would be really good at working together. So not too many people I know can say that
yeah,
about their spouse or whatever, but we do really work well together. So that's nice.
that is a very good compliment to each other. So,
It is, yeah.
yeah. Well, wonderful. You do have an older daughter at the time of the birth of your twins. When you guys were trying to have a continuation of your family, was this sort of planned, or I'm sure twins weren't planned, but having
No,
another child,
yeah, it was definitely, we were definitely trying to have a bigger family for sure. So that the getting pregnant wasn't the unexpected part. Before the our twin girls, and then after Eleanor, we had, well, there was, I guess, how many years difference there? 3 years between, I think. And in that period of time, we were pregnant twice, and she miscarried twice
mm,
between Eleanor and between our twins. So yeah, we've been trying to have a bigger family ever since Eleanor was born. So
mm,
it's been a bit of a different experience. Not Definitely not as planned, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
It was very, very difficult, especially going through the miscarriage phase, I guess you'd call it. It was very difficult. So we weren't, it's just a different kind of loss.
yeah,
Like nothing would prepare you for losing a child, and nothing can prepare you for a miscarriage either. It comes with it a whole bunch of different things. At least from my perspective, that I just would have never have expected or would have known how to deal with. It was really challenging to go through that. And I remember when she had her first miscarriage, I wasn't even home. Like I was away working. I was on the road for a few days, and I just remember she called and just kind of explained what had happened. And the worst part was just not being able to be there for her. Right? That
yeah.
was the hardest part. And I was able to get home, I think, a day or two after that, but it was just not being there was really, really difficult.
We had also experienced a loss, miscarriage in between our oldest daughter and our son Brandon. So it is one of those things where it's no way to prepare, no way to do it. Yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah, it does. It
Yeah,
does. It sucks. Yeah, you just gotta kind of figure it out. There's no book. you could really read to
No.
prepare you for it. I mean, I know there's books you can read about it, but when you're in it, when it's happening, um,
Yeah.
you really have to kind of figure it out for yourself. You're just kind of walking around in the dark, stumbling
Yeah.
around, trying to find
Yeah.
the direction to go in. It was really difficult, and it really made pregnancy like not fun.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
after the first miscarriage. With Eleanor, we got pregnant basically as soon as we decided to start trying. We were very fortunate that way. We never really experienced difficulty, and to this date even have not experienced difficulty in actually getting pregnant.
Yeah.
But with Eleanor, it was, yeah, instant pregnancy, and everything was, it was perfect. Really, the whole pregnancy was
Yeah.
was more or less perfect. There was no problems anywhere, and it was fun. It was fun to be pregnant and just experience that whole thing. But as soon as the miscarriage, as soon as the first one, it really changes your perspective on getting pregnant. And it's just, the thing I remember most about the miscarriages was, at least after the first one, when we got pregnant for the third time, um, you know, every time she would go to the bathroom, I would just, I always just would just stop what I was doing, and I would just listen.
Yeah.
Because if I heard her start crying, like I knew what was happening or something. So I was always just very cognizant of that, and it was really stressful. It was really unnerving to always have that in the back of your mind. Always you could wake up at any point, and she could be in the bathroom, or you just don't know. And it was
Yeah.
it was very stressful. It's very difficult, and it really, like I said, it really took the fun out of being pregnant, because you're just always waiting for
You're
you
always
know
waiting
the
for something.
you're always waiting for something, and in that case, on our third pregnancy, that something did happen, right? So it just kind of really takes the wind out of your sails when you do hear that she had miscarried again. It was hard. It was really hard.
After having those two miscarriages, having that experience of, as you said, it's not fun. It's not, the joy of being pregnant. When you guys did find out again that you were pregnant for the fourth, this would be your fourth pregnancy.
Mhm.
What was your reaction to that? How were you feeling? How were you and Kat feeling?
I mean, we like before we decided to try again after each loss, like
Yeah.
there's always a period of time where you're just kind of sad and kind of down about the whole prospect of having a bigger family, right? So,
Hmm.
you know, by the time we were ready to try again, we were obviously just in a better place mentally and
Mentally.
emotionally, and ready to try again. Like you kind of in a way pick up and move on and try and move forward. So when we got pregnant for the fourth time, yeah, we were excited, but it was a very, we were cautiously optimistic, with things. We were excited to be pregnant, but we're also like, let's just not get too
Yeah.
excited. We don't
Yeah.
want to rush out and buy clothes, for example,
Hmm.
or decorate the baby room, or do all the things that you're
Yeah.
supposed to do when you're pregnant. We were
Yeah.
very, very reserved with things, just because that thought is always in the back of your head. It
Yeah.
never leaves. It's always there. It's always hanging out. Whenever you have a moment of, just quiet in your mind, that thought's always there. Like, the worst could still happen,
This could
right?
still,
So
yeah.
it's very hard. It's always there, and it's easy to get distracted from that. Obviously, with happy things and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, when you're falling asleep in bed, that thought is always still there.
Yeah. And so pregnancy's progressing. Do you start to ease up on this caution as you
Um,
start going to more and more doctor's appointments? And
I mean, yeah, I guess that's really hard to say.
yeah.
I mean, I guess the farther along you get in the pregnancy, the more hope you have that you'll get to the finish line.
Hmm.
So I guess there was that. But I mean, for me, really, it was always just waiting to hear like what the bad news was.
Yeah.
Every ultrasound was, oh, what's gonna happen? What are we gonna find out today? Right? What's the bad news today?
Hmm.
But at least with the fourth one, the fourth pregnancy, it was special because she went in for an ultrasound, I think at 12 or 13 weeks, I can't remember. And I remember I was driving, I went out to get lunch on my lunch break from work, and as I was driving back, she called me and just sent me a picture, and I was pretty excited, so I didn't stop driving or pull over. I just took my phone out and looked at it, and yeah, it was just a picture of the ultrasound, and there was twins with the labels A and B. So that was exciting. So for for the first time really since Eleanor, we did have some genuine excitement in our hearts for being pregnant, because that's a pretty special thing to be pregnant and also to have twins. It was pretty cool. So that brought us some joy. I think some temporary joy, unfortunately.
Yeah. Now, were your daughters identical twins, or were they fraternal twins, or
They were fraternal twins. They were
fraternal?
not identical, but they were
All
both
right.
girls. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah, it was really cool. I remember getting the ultrasound. I think I still have the picture on my phone. Just yeah, just the little tiny. I'm sure you've seen the little tiny white dots that in a little black sack, and there was two of them. So that was really cool. I think I said like "F off" like a bunch of times, just like "F off, no "F off," like yeah, no, it was pretty cool. So yeah,
it's yeah. I'm sure it's great news, but then all of a sudden you have to think we've got to double everything. We've got to double up the
yeah,
cribs. We got to get double the car seats. We got to
yeah. That's
double
yeah.
the
And me,
diapers and everything.
I'm kind of I'm a pragmatic person, and I like to. Catherine might say that I kind of take the fun out of things sometimes because I'm very analytical and kind of a logic following kind of individual. So immediately my first thought is, well, she's excited, and I'm also excited to be obviously pregnant with twins. My first thought is like, oh my, like we need a new vehicle now. Like we need a vehicle that can comfortably carry, like five people with
Yeah.
two car seats. Like we need a minivan. We're going to be those people with a minivan. So
Hey.
that's kind of where my mind went almost instantly. Was okay. How do we logistically handle this update to our lives here? So yeah, it was exciting thinking about all that stuff, and it was stressful, and yeah, all those things. It was a very mixed bag of emotion, and while at the same time, not forgetting that we did have two losses before that. So I mean, there's still that was always in the back of your mind, but at that point, kind of less so,
Yeah.
just because you had the distraction of having what was at that point a healthy normal pregnancy and having twins, and it was all very exciting. So there
Yeah.
was like a temporary kind of reprieve from the pain, at least.
And let's start getting a sort of a timeline going. So this was about 16 weeks when you guys found out that you're having twins.
I think,
Ab-
yeah.
about
So
then, we
at some
won't.
point, yeah, between it might have been 12 or
Yeah,
13 weeks, or
we
yeah,
won't hold you
in there
to it.
somewhere.
Yeah, we won't hold you exactly to that time frame.
I don't remember. I'm sure Catherine does. She
Yeah.
she
Well,
kept a pretty good account of things. But yeah, it was around that time. Yeah.
mm. And what time of year is this about? Is this beginning of the year, mid year,
That was in
spring,
April, I
summer,
believe. We found out
April?
we were having twins. I'm pretty sure it was April.
Okay, so first semester is in this
Yeah,
late winter, early spring.
yeah. It was spring at that point. I would say there was still snow on the ground. If
Yeah,
I remember correctly, but it was kind of starting to slowly melt, and the roads would be kind of dry, if I remember
yeah.
correctly. But yeah, definitely, I think it was April. So yeah, I think
All right.
late first, maybe early second trimester.
Oh, good. And then let's talk about the progression of the pregnancy. Um,
Sure, yeah.
for twins, it's a little bit of a different. Is there more checkups? Are there more?
Well,
I've never
that's
had twins.
between finding out we were having twins and then finding out about the bad news later, it was really kind of it's kind of a gap in my memory, to be honest.
Yeah.
With our first child, Eleanor, we were able to have a midwife,
Uh huh.
which was a really, really great experience. We really liked that a lot, and we wanted to try and get a midwife for our subsequent pregnancies. Unfortunately, when you have twins, I think you're deemed a high risk pregnancy
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
obvious reasons, and then the midwives at that point would transfer you over to an OB for care. So I believe we just had maybe another one or two ultrasounds in between finding out we were having twins and then finding out the bad news. And because we found out in early July that we were not going to have a normal a normal
Yeah.
pregnancy. So there is a bit of a gap in my memory between finding out and then finding out the bad news.
And you've referenced this. Let's talk about this. What was the situation where you guys found out? Let's talk
So
about
yeah, we so this might have been our first ultrasound
like a
with
major
our
ultrasound. Yeah.
yeah, major ultrasound. It was a 20-week ultrasound where they look at everything, check
Hmm.
make sure all the parts
Yeah.
are there basically,
Yeah.
right? And it was our first ultrasound with where we would get to meet our OB at the time. So yeah, we drove into this appointment. I always made sure that I would get time to go to all the ultrasound
Hmm.
appointments. That was something that was really important to me.
Yeah.
So whenever I could, I would go, and I don't think I missed any. Like through all the pregnancies that we've been through, I maybe have missed maybe one or two. So it's been pretty nice to be able to get to all of them. So we always went together and we drove together, and it was just like any other appointment. It starts out just you walk in, sit in the waiting room, and they call you in, and you sit down in the ultrasound room, and they lay on the table and all that stuff. So, and it took a while because there was twins. So,
Yeah.
I think the scan probably took 45 minutes. Like you're in there for a long time because they got two things to check on, two
Yeah.
babies to look at. So, you know, we have never had an ultrasound where the tech or the doctor would had identified a problem.
Hmm.
So I wasn't very sensitive to like the body language or the just the things that they were saying.
Yeah.
So I was pretty just like, yeah, looking at the screen and looking at all the things, and I don't know what I'm looking at when I look at an ultrasound. So I'm just, oh yeah, sure, yeah, you say
Yeah.
that's their heart, then I'm gonna say that's their heart, or this is their kidney, that's their kidney. I don't know what I'm looking
Yeah.
at. So I remember just, yeah, everything seemed fine, and the ultrasound ended. It in my mind didn't seem to end super quickly, but I do remember distinctly that they would look at one baby first, and then they look at the second baby. So looking back at it, they definitely spent a little less time looking at one of the babies, which, given what had happened, is makes total sense. So the tech kind of finished up quicker than I guess I would have expected looking back
Yeah.
at it, and she kind of left. And then we just left the room and we're waiting to meet the ROB just to give us the results of the scan. So
Yeah.
went into the doctor's office and we're sitting there, and she just explained that baby A, Violet, was very healthy, happy baby. Everything was there. Everything was great. And then she started talking about baby B, which is Hazel. She told us that Hazel was diagnosed with acrania, and then that would result in what's called anencephaly. So
Yeah.
acrania is where a portion of the skull of the baby doesn't develop, and therefore the brain can't develop properly, which is what I guess is the anencephaly part of that whole thing. So
Hmm.
that's when we found out that yeah, Hazel wouldn't be able to survive outside of the womb, and that was, I mean, any bad news is unexpected,
Yeah.
but that was really, really, really unexpected. Like I didn't, I didn't really, I don't think I didn't cry in the room at the time. I just was kind of just taking it all in, just trying to ask questions
Hmm.
and whatnot. But Catherine was, she was basically instantly in tears. and it just hit kind of just like a truck. You get hit by a truck, and
Yeah.
you don't see it coming, and then your whole world is kind of turned upside down. Yeah, it was a really weird experience. It was really sad, and it was the first time in my life that I had really experienced like a really significant, I don't know if you call it trauma at that point, but just like a really significant loss or just a really
Yeah.
significant amount of bad news. So I probably didn't react the way maybe I should have looking back at it, but I can't go back and change it.
Yeah.
Um, it was just such an unusual experience.
In a situation like this, you have no clue how to react.
No, yeah, no, you don't. You just know, like I said before, there's no book.
Yeah.
You can't find anything to prepare you for that. I mean, I guess if you wanted to, you could, but I would never think to do that. To prepare yourself for the worst
Yeah.
kind of news. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was horrible. Yeah, it was really horrible. It was awful.
Your daughter Violet, they said everything's healthy with her.
Yeah.
And then your daughter Hazel, did they talk about what you could expect with the development in the womb, or I
Not
don't
at
know?
that point. I mean, it was just an initial diagnosis at that
Mhm.
point. So I got to assume that, an OB knows what they're doing and can
Yeah.
diagnose things accurately. So, I mean, they wanted to send us for like a follow up ultrasound at the
Uh-huh.
children's hospital in town just to confirm the diagnosis. So we did have this like tiny sliver of hope that it might be a false diagnosis, but
Yeah.
just based on the scans that we had gotten on that day, fairly certain that it was correct. So there wasn't a lot of explaining about how things would proceed at that point. We basically just left the clinic, and then they were able to get us an appointment. Uh, excuse me, the following day at the hospital
Yeah.
to confirm. We were hoping to get in that afternoon. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be. So,
Yeah. And I'm sure it was just an eternity having to wait
oh yeah, it really
from
was. Yeah, yeah,
for the next day. Yeah.
it was such a long time. I mean, it felt like forever. We just
Yeah.
left. So we get this bad news, and then we leave the clinic, and we're walking out. I think I had my arm around Catherine as we're kind of just quickly trying to just get to the car.
Yeah.
The goal at that point is to get to the car and to not notice all the
Anything.
pregnant
Yeah.
people in the waiting room at the clinic.
Yeah.
Like don't look at all these people with healthy babies. Like don't
Yeah.
just get to the car. Don't think about that, and just don't look at anybody, and let's just get out of here as fast as we can.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we scurried out of there pretty quick and hopped in the car and just sat there for probably 10 or 15 minutes and just both just cried inside the car.
And
Yeah, it
sometimes that's
was.
all you can do is cry and just have the emotions flush over you.
Mhm.
The
Yeah,
waves
but
of
that's
emotion just take over.
yeah, that's what we did. And I mean, Catherine was very sad. She's a very emotional person, all around. She really wears her heart on her sleeve, and she loves everybody and everything to the fullest. And when she feels things
Mhm.
like completely. There's not much left on the table when when she has a feeling about something. So she was very very upset, very sad, and crying. Is just basically unstoppable. One of those cries that you
Yeah.
just can't stop.
Yeah.
And not that she had to, because she didn't, but it was just she wasn't able to stop crying. And it took me a while to really just let the news kind of just sink in and just let it marinate kind of for a bit. And then it took a bit, and then I was able to just kind of process what had happened, and then just understand what it meant, and then just kind of be sad about it. So
Yeah.
it did take me a while. And I remember she would be sad, and then crying, and I kind of wouldn't be. I would be there with her in the moment, but not
Yeah.
physically sad. it was weird. It's hard to explain, but I would be sad on the inside, but not exactly,
Able to
displaying
show
that.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really hard. Just because we are so different in that way, the way we express our emotions. One of the big challenges for me and for us was to be able to express to the other person, what we were feeling. And this is more for myself, because more of a not that I'm a big macho man or anything, but I'm much more reserved with my emotions. So it
Mm.
was really a challenge to kind of to let those come to the surface and just kind of be in the grief with my wife. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
that was the hardest part, just to show her that I was there with her. And I don't know if it's just me, but I always have this desire to always try and fix problems, fix things. I like to fix when something's broken. I want to fix it.
Yeah.
And when I see my wife crying and sad, like my knee jerk reaction is always to try and fix it, make her feel better. And it took a really long time to figure out that she doesn't need that and she doesn't want that. She just
There's
wants
no
to
way.
be in the grief, in this dark place, just together with me and not alone.
Yeah.
Because I think I did leave her alone in her grief, like a lot, like more than I wanted to, looking back
Yeah.
at it. And that was really hard for me to just let myself be in that with her. So, but yeah, to get back to the timeline kind of thing, yeah, I just remember sitting in the car with her while she's sad and kind of wrapped in her grief, and me just try to understand what it all meant, and also feeling sad but not being fully immersed in the sadness.
Hmm.
It was really a challenge in the first 15-20 minutes, in the car with her. But I eventually just said, okay, well, we're gonna go home because I don't want to sit in this car and cry anymore on the street. So just
Yeah.
put her in drive, and we left, and we just drove home. And I don't remember if that was a weekday or not. It must have been, but I think I just called my office and said I'm just gonna not come in
Yeah.
for the rest of the day. So we just went home, and we just spent the rest of the day just being sad together.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That's all we did for the first few days after the news, was just be sad together.
Yeah. The next day you go in, there's the confirmation that that your
Yeah.
Hazel has this condition.
Yep.
And
Yeah, that
is
was the
this
next
when?
day, and we met the doctor that would be taking on our case, and she was great. She was she made the experience just so much better for us. She was very good at taking care of us,
Yeah.
managing our emotions and taking the time to just explain things and answer questions. She was very very available for all of that. So
Yeah.
that was really nice to meet her. But yeah, we went in the next day to the hospital, and yeah, I got the confirmation, and at that point just kind of just painted a picture of what things were going to look like going forward, I guess. Yeah.
And what were the things going to look like going forward?
So we had a really it was kind of complicated because we had twins. So
Yeah.
you're trying to understand that one of your babies is going to be fine, and you're going to down the road have a healthy baby, but you also have to carry this baby that will not make it. you
Mm.
know and I think for me that was the hardest part of, at least up to that point, the hardest part was just knowing that things were going to just be more complicated, because we had to carry long enough to allow Violet to grow and develop, and then while also having Hazel develop and grow, although at like a slower rate, because she just wasn't going to develop normally. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, if I remember correctly, I think at that point it was kind of assumed that we would probably deliver Violet somewhat early down the line, maybe 35 or 36 weeks, depending on Hazel. And I think that babies with anencephaly, I think they have, if I remember correctly, the like a 75% chance of being stillborn,
Mm-hmm.
but they have that remaining chances, obviously, that they could be born alive and live for a period of time
Yeah.
after delivery. So we were very hopeful, I think, to have some kind of time with Hazel after she was born.
Yeah.
So I think that was, at that point, that was more or less what we were trying to figure out and manage all of these emotions about having a baby that will be fine, but also having one that won't be. Having to explain all this to our, at the time, 3-year-old. You know,
Yeah.
it was a whirlwind of trying to manage like so many different extremes. You're happy because you're pregnant with a healthy baby, but you're sad because you're also pregnant with an unhealthy baby who will die. It was complicated. I still don't understand how we got through it,
Yeah.
at least in that initial phase, because it was really unique. We were in a unique situation, and we didn't know anybody at that point who had really been through any kind of loss, or been in a situation where they were having loss and life at the same time.
Yeah.
It was really unique and complicated, and it was hard. It was really hard.
As you said, it's such a unique and complicated situation that you guys are in.
Yeah,
I can't even fathom what emotions you guys could have been feeling and would have been feeling and did feel.
yeah. It was just a lot of sadness, and I remember having to explain to Eleanor that one of the babies wouldn't be coming home, but the other would be. And she would lay there on the bed, with her head on Catherine's belly and listening, and just seeing her, seeing what pregnancy can result in, which is a normal healthy baby.
Yeah.
Just seeing Eleanor, and then knowing that Violet would be fine, but then that Hazel wouldn't be. It was a real mind. There's a word for it. It's called a
Yeah.
mind, because it was a lot of sadness. I
Yeah.
don't know what else to say about that. It was hard. It was really hard.
I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you
I'm
for
sorry.
for saying that.
Yeah.
It's something that not many people would understand. That kind of mix of emotions.
Yeah.
It was really difficult. We cried. There's a lot of crying. A lot
Yeah.
of just holding each other in the kitchen. Late at night, just stand there crying, and just holding Catherine's belly. Just having my hands on her belly, and you can feel both babies moving around, and you just know that one's not going to make it.
Yeah.
It was awful. Yeah, it was really awful.
Well, let's talk about the progression. Um,
Sure.
after you talked with the new doctor who's going to be taking care of you guys, a plan was set. It. What was the plan? Or I guess we
So
sort of talked
the
about that, but
yeah, the I guess the plan at that point was to carry it as long as we could, and give birth to both
yeah.
babies. If I remember, they give you options at the time. You could, I think at that point we may have been given the option to terminate Hazel based on her fatal diagnosis, but we obviously didn't opt for that. So we just chose to just carry on with the pregnancy as best as we could, and then
Hmm.
we at that point scheduled another appointment in 4 weeks' time for a follow-up ultrasound, because while Hazel was, while she did have this diagnosis, um, it wouldn't ultimately cause any
Yeah.
problems with the pregnancy, so to speak. Like
Yeah.
like Violet would develop just fine, and Hazel would grow as much as she could, and just do all the baby things.
Yeah.
Like she would still kick and move around. So on the outside, you would have no idea that something was wrong.
Yeah.
So the plan was just to carry as normal for, I think, as long as
For
we
as long
could.
as
So
possible.
yeah, and then after that, ultrasound with our doctor, the new doctor. We just went camping, got out of the
Got
city
out.
for a few
Yeah.
days, and just kind of got away from it as best we could, and spent a couple days at the lake with Eleanor and just the three of us and the dogs, and just kind of got away from it a bit. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what we did immediately afterwards, and then we just kind of carried on until the next appointment.
And what happens at the next appointment?
So we go back to the hospital,
Hmm.
the children's hospital, because we're now a very special kind of case.
Yeah.
Still high risk, but just I would say highly unusual. I'm by no means a doctor and can't speak to what kind of cases they see, but as far as I'm concerned, we were a pretty unique case.
Yeah.
So we go back to the hospital for the ultrasound, and we're both at that point. It was 4 weeks since we found out, so we were still obviously sad about things, but we had kind of gotten to a point where we kind of just started to accept what was going to happen, right? And had
Hmm.
wouldn't say made peace with it, but just had gotten to a more comfortable place
Hmm.
with the news. So yeah, we get to the hospital and get to the room, and we're both excited to see our girls,
Yeah.
which I at the time I don't think we knew they were girls. I think we found out it might have been at this appointment or the one after, but regardless, we were both excited to see our babies and see their heartbeats and see their movements and all that stuff. So we're just in the room, laying there, watching them do their thing, and at this point, I'm a little more aware of the body language and the things that the ultrasound tech is doing as they're doing the
Yeah.
scan, just based on what had happened a month ago. So we're laying there, and she's looking at things, and then she, the thing you never want to hear in an ultrasound is, "Oh, I gotta go get the doctor," or
Oh.
ask the doctor a question. So
Yeah.
as soon as that happened, you're just like, I was basically just like what, what is the problem this time? Like what type of bad news is it? And I remember I didn't say it out loud, but in my mind, I was just like, and then Catherine just instantly started to cry because, I mean, when they do that, when they go ask to get the
Oh yeah.
doctor, it can't be good, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, they left, and Dr. Lane came back in, and so they're scanning away, and they tell us that baby A, Violet, had no heartbeat, and that was, yeah, that was it. And then we just both started just, yeah, just instant crying all over
Yeah.
again. It was yeah, it was awful. The worst. It was the worst possible outcome,
Yeah.
for us at that point. Like we had carried hope for 4 weeks that we would still have a healthy baby at the end of this pregnancy, and then that was all just taken away
Yeah.
in an instant.
Yeah.
It
It's
was it
just
was terrible.
the dream was ripped away from you
Yeah, it really
twice.
was.
And so Violet, baby A, Violet, no heartbeat. Hazel was still
She
alive
was
at the
fine.
time.
Yeah, she was fine. She was alive. She was doing all the things that she was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
She was unchanged from the previous appointment. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I guess they said that they estimated that Violet would have passed away, 2 or 3 weeks previously.
Oh.
So just the way that the babies were kind of positioned in Catherine's belly, like Violet, baby A was, just a little closer to, like a little further in her pelvis, kind of down towards her cervix, and
Uh-huh.
Hazel, baby B, was just up higher. So the movements of Hazel were always a little more pronounced,
Yeah.
and Catherine, I know she had a really hard time hearing that it had been a couple weeks since Violet had passed away, because there was no signs. She
Yeah.
didn't know. She couldn't tell.
She felt
And
movement. She felt movement. Yeah.
yeah, she felt movement. Hazel was being a baby in her belly, and there was no indication that something awful had happened. So I know she felt really, really awful that she didn't know ahead
Yeah.
of time. So that was really hard on her, getting that news, and I mean, it was hard on both of us. But It was just, yeah, it was terrible. It was just like, in the span of 4 weeks, you just get hit with like the worst news you could
Yeah.
ever have. Like just, it was terrible. It was just the old fashioned 1-2, and you're
Yeah.
just down for the count. Yeah, it was awful. It was a really dark time. Yeah.
Just terrible. The devastating news, one right after another,
Hmm.
for a whole
Yeah.
month.
Yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, completely unexpected, and yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. But we got the news, and of course everybody left the room, gave us some space, and then eventually they come back in and check on you, and in walks this nurse. Her name was Debbie, Nurse Debbie, and you know he- healthcare workers, nurses, doctors. Like I've never been to school for that, but I imagine they train them on how to handle giving patients bad news and dealing with patients who've received bad news. And she walks in and she says, so I hear you got some news you weren't expecting. And we're like, yeah, obviously, like we're our babies are both gonna die, and we thought it was kind of an odd thing for her to say, but
Yeah.
she just walked over and just gave us all just a big hug. It was really the most perfect thing that could have
Yeah.
happened, I think, at that point. It was just a big hug. It was great. It was the most soothing thing that I think could have been done for us at that point. It was, yeah, it was great. She made a big difference in the way we view that day.
That
Just
situation. Yeah.
while it was full of sadness, she was able to just for a second just take that away, and it was a really beautiful moment.
Oh, sometimes just the smallest act of kindness and compassion has the biggest
Yeah.
impact.
Yeah, yeah, it really
Yeah.
was. That's a good way to put it. It was just a small, tiny thing that anyone could do, and
Yeah.
it was perfect. Yep, it was great.
It's got to be such a rope a dope of emotions.
It was, yeah, it really was. Even looking back on it, I've been thinking about things. Well, obviously, it's been 2 years, a little over 2 years since this happened, so you have a lot of time to reflect on
Hmm.
what you've gone through. And yeah, even now looking back at it, you just, if someone asked how we got through it, I wouldn't have an answer. It's just,
Yeah.
honestly, it's 5 minutes at a time. Every 5 minutes, you get through the next 5 minutes of your day,
Yeah.
whatever you're doing that day, just get to the next 5 minutes, the next moment, and just keep on moving forward. Each step you take is another 5 minutes further down the line,
Yeah.
and that's really how I would kind of summarize that summer. Was just getting to the next moment, getting to the next day, get to the next week. It was impossible.
Yeah.
It seemed at the time it was impossible.
Now, not to sound callous, but with the news that one of your children has passed away
Hmm.
and the other child, there's no viability outside of the womb for a long time. Does the path look like after this?
So yeah, so at this point, we were able to discuss options about how to
Hmm.
proceed. So I think there was two or three that we could have done. Essentially, it boiled down to we could decide to terminate Hazel at that point because she was
Yeah.
still alive, and then induce labor at that point. I don't think they might have done a DNC at that point. I can't remember, but Catherine would have been 24 weeks
Yeah.
pregnant at that point, so that might have been one of the options, was to do a DNC. Second option, I think, would have been to just initiate delivery and just
Yeah.
deliver the girls right there. And then the third option, which is the option that we ultimately took, was to carry the pregnancy as long as we could into the future. And at that point, it was really tricky because we really wanted to try and make that 25% chance of having Hazel be born alive, and
Yeah.
be able to just to meet her, even if for a short time.
Yeah.
So the balance was trying to carry as long as we could, to keep her alive for as long as we could so that she would be as big as she could be and therefore have the higher chance of being born alive, while at the same time, Violet has died, and at that point had been dead for 2 3 weeks, and was her body was starting to break down, as all things do when they die. So you had to balance keeping the pregnancy going with not getting sick or whatnot from Violet
Yeah.
decomposing inside you. So that was kind of the balance we had to strike. So at that point in time, everyone's estimate was that we would carry, I think, somewhere around, in the early 30s for
Yeah.
weeks. I
Yeah.
think we were shooting for 34, 35 weeks at the most at that point. So that's what we decided to do to just keep things as they were and carry for as long as we could.
And every day you're waking up just wondering if this day is the day that you have
Yeah,
to.
I mean, we really, I mean, for me at least, that wasn't, at that point, what's coming,
Yeah.
the end result, like
Okay.
there's not really a lot of guessing
Yeah.
about that. So for me, I wouldn't say I made peace with what was going to happen, but I knew that there
No
was
matter
no other
what.
option,
Yeah.
right? So like I was still sad, but I was more focused on getting to that endpoint, wherever that was, right? So
Hmm.
just making sure that we could spend as much time together being pregnant and enjoying being pregnant as much as we could, right? So, and it was, yeah, it was really hard. The hardest thing was just to see Catherine walking around with this belly. She's carrying twins, so she's immediately you're just bigger. Your belly is just bigger when you have twins. So she looks very pregnant. Like when you walk by her, like if you're a stranger, oh well, this person's obviously pregnant. It's one of those
Yeah.
questions you never
Yeah.
ask somebody, but you know when someone's pregnant.
Yeah.
And with Catherine, you knew. Just the hardest part was seeing her, just stand somewhere and just holding her belly and just crying, and then walking around and seeing her look at other moms with their pregnant bellies or with their little babies,
Yeah.
just knowing that she wouldn't get to have that this time, and obviously for her, like the same thought, right? She would look around and see all these moms with their big bellies and their new babies, and that she was robbed of that. She would never get to have that this time.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part, just kind of existing in the world with no one really knowing what was going on, because we weren't keeping things really a secret, but we weren't exactly
You weren't
advertising
telling.
to
Yeah.
the world what we were going through. So yeah, it's just hard just knowing that what's going to happen, but like having nobody else know about it, and you just walk through the world and just no one has a clue,
Mhm.
and you're just reminded so often of the inevitability of what's going to happen, right? So every time you go into a baby store or walk by a young family with somebody with a baby or someone pushing a stroller or whatever the case is, it just constantly reminded you of you're not going to have a baby at the end of this. It was really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
else to describe it. And for me, like I'm I'm a very logic driven kind of person, and I was able to just really kind of step back, I think, from the situation and just kind of look at it from like it's kind of like an outside perspective. And I mostly did that with Catherine, and just standing back and just watching her. That was the hardest part, just watching her, because she's the one carrying. Someone looks at me and I'm I'm not pregnant. I mean, I don't. You can't tell that my wife is pregnant or that I'm going
Yeah.
to lose two babies. Like no one knows. But when you
Yeah.
look at her, I always looked at her, and I just felt so sad because she couldn't escape it. It was constant. Like every time she walked around, she felt a kick or something. Like just another reminder
A
that
reminder.
it wouldn't wasn't meant to be.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest part. I think after we found out about Violet was just that it wouldn't work out, and then all the reminders about all the things you're supposed to love about being pregnant, all those things just reminded you of the sadness. So that was the hardest part.
How long until Hazel was born?
So yeah, we were able to carry until the end of August. They were born on August 29th.
Yeah.
So that was, yeah, I guess 8 weeks after we found out about Hazel initially.
Yeah.
So we carried for almost another month after we found out about Violet. And yeah, we just tried to just enjoy the time that we had being pregnant. And, in terms of infant loss, like I would say for us, the best part about, if there is a best part, the silver lining, I guess, about how the events all transpired was that we had time.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of time to kind of plan and to just kind of research and just make it kind of what we wanted. I couldn't imagine being someone who is pregnant and everything is fine, and then you get to the delivery day, everything's fine, and then you deliver, and then you deliver a stillborn baby. That would be, I couldn't imagine that, right? That would be terribly, terribly awful. To not to just to be hit with that kind of news, and then you have to make so many decisions so quickly about what you want to do after that point. So for us, we were kind of lucky in a way that we did get the plan, and we were able to get in touch with some really great people and some really great
Mm-hmm.
organizations that were able to kind of support us and offer different kind of services, and we were able to plan the delivery day and what we would want to have happen after we delivered and all that stuff. So the best thing about it was that we had time. That made things a lot easier. I think was
Mm.
just the fact that we had time. We had four
That
weeks.
that's a very, as you said, it's silver lining
Hmm.
to a sad situation, that you did have
Yep.
time, that you had time to think and time to plan and process. It
Yep.
doesn't make it easier, but it makes it so that you can experience what you need to experience a little bit more.
Yeah. Exactly. It was very helpful, and we just kind of over the next 4 weeks, we just tried to kind of brainstorm what we wanted to do and got the plan together, and we were able to go and visit some family in Alberta, and that was really nice. And that visit in particular was special because the hardest part about, not the hardest part, but one of the hardest parts about going through something very horrible or traumatic or very sad is just having to explain it to other people,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and having to deal with what they feel and how
Yeah.
they think, and like no one knows ever what to say or how to treat you, and so that's a whole other thing we could talk about. But when we went out to visit her family, her cousin, I think said to us just one of the most meaningful and helpful things that I think anyone could. And he just said that you are loved. Just said to us that you are loved. That was a really powerful thing to have someone say. Like and the way he said it, it was different than saying like we love you or I love you. It was you are loved.
Yeah.
He was stating a fact. He was just pointing out something that was never going to change, and that was just a really helpful thing because there was honestly nothing anybody could do to make us really feel better. There's
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
No amount of money, no amount of things, no amount of time could have made us feel better in any significant way. And just saying that you are loved was, I think, the best thing that anyone could have said,
Yeah.
and that was very helpful.
That is such a tender way to put it. That you
Yeah.
guys are loved.
Yeah, it was perfect. And I think love really is, I think it's the foundation of what we're supposed to do as just humans on this planet was just, I think it's just to love, to love others, to love yourself, and to love the things you do. And I think everything is just, it's just founded on love. Just being able to express that to somebody in such a meaningful and direct and just like a matter of fact way was
Yeah.
just, it was a really beautiful thing to hear at that
To
point
hear.
in time.
Let's talk about when you did get to meet your daughters.
Sure, yeah. So we went into the hospital. So the week before, like at that point, for the last 4 weeks, because we were carefully trying to balance carrying Hazel as long as we could while monitoring Violet to make sure that she wasn't deteriorating too rapidly.
Mhm.
We were going for ultrasounds. It was like at least once a week, if not maybe even more frequently than that. So we were in there quite a bit. Just getting to take in. I mean, it was the ultrasounds were the only visual connection to our girls at that point. We were
Mhm.
able to find out their sex. I think almost right after we found out that Hazel was dead. That we found out their sex. So that was exciting. We found out we were both having girls. So we already had a girl. So the idea of having three girls in the household was, to me, is something that would have been very, very fun and very exciting, especially when they would have been teenagers.
Yeah.
I always joke about a household full of teenage girls would be something special. So that was some joy that we experienced after learning that Violet had passed away. And then yeah, we got to see them every week at least until we delivered on the 29th. So yeah, we get to go in, and the hospital staff were really great. The techs were really great. I mean, up at that point, the only reason to have the ultrasounds, aside from monitoring the growth of Hazel, was just for us to be connected to our babies in some way.
Yeah.
So we were in any way, we weren't rushed to get in there and leave. We could spend as much time as we wanted to. Our doctor was really great. We basically had an open-ended all access pass to the ultrasound equipment. If we ever wanted to come in, all we had to do was call and they would make time.
No.
So it was really great. We got to spend as much time as we could with our girls, just on a TV screen. So it was really nice to be able to see Hazel moving around and kicking, and you could see all the parts, all of her eyes and her nose and everything. It was really cute, and we got some really really great photos of some of those scans that we'll have for forever. So that was a really nice part of the next 4 weeks. As the time went on there, you do get to a point where you do accept what is
Yeah.
going to happen,
Yeah.
and then you're able to just kind of enjoy what you have at the time. So we really did cherish going to all these appointments and getting to see them. That was something we really liked to do. And then a week or so before we went into the hospital to deliver, our doctor had told us, I believe it was on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, that Hazel had she had stopped growing. Her weight and size really hadn't increased since I think the last appointment or last two appointments. So just based on the fact that she had stopped growing, they recommended that it would be the best to deliver soon,
Yeah.
because we were hoping to deliver at some time in mid to late September, was what we originally had planned. And then yeah, we decided to go in on I believe it was I think a Saturday, August 29th. Went in, I think it was the afternoon on the 29th. We decided to go in and just get settled, and Catherine got introduced, and we did the whole thing. And we had Eleanor stay with Catherine's mom. So a big thing for us going through this whole process was to make sure that we kind of involved our whole family as much as we could,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of take the experience in. I say this kind of jokingly, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to be paying for therapy 20 years from now because we didn't deal with the pain and sorrow that
Yeah.
we were going through at the time, if that makes any sense. That's
Yeah,
kind
it
of a,
does. Yes,
you
it
know,
does.
the typical, my parents and my wife's parents are of a generation that, they didn't talk about hard things. They didn't, that wasn't something that was part of their life really, and from what I can tell at least. So we made a really conscious choice to take things head on, fully immerse ourselves in the experience that we were going through, and make sure that Eleanor was involved and had a part to play, so that this would be something that our family could look back on and remember as a really beautiful experience, instead of looking back on it as something that was awful that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
So that was really our goal for the month of August, was to just immerse ourselves in what was happening and involve our families as much as we could in all the ways that we could. So that was our goal. So we were very conscious about, including Eleanor in what was happening and telling her that, I mean, she was excited to be a big sister, like
Hmm.
she had a big sister shirt that kids get when they're going to have a sibling, so hers says big sister because she's a big sister. And
Yeah.
she really, I think, saved us from a lot of darkness and sorrow, just because she just has this way about her, in the moments where you need the most, lifting up, she's there to take care of you. She really took care of us. And at the time she was 3, but she was a really she's always been a more mature child for her age. Like, even when she was little, like 1 or 2 years old, like she didn't look like a typical baby, like she just looked older. She's always looked older. She's always looked like she's a year or two beyond where she is. And even in her mind, she's what I would say like an old soul, you
Yeah.
know. She would just take care of us, and she wouldn't be afraid to talk about the girls and to talk about how they were going to die. Like sometimes toddlers, they just
Yeah.
say things
They
as they
do.
are.
Yeah.
There's no filter, there's no fluff. So when she would talk about them, she would just be like, "Yeah, my sisters are gonna die," or something to that effect, right? And to somebody hearing that, you're like, "Oh my, like, what are you talking about?" But that's exactly how she viewed things in her mind, right?
Yeah.
So
It's said with innocence and pure love,
yeah,
and you can't fault a little
and
kid for that.
yeah, no, it was beautiful. And she would never have sisters the way that kids should have at that point in time. But for her, she doesn't know that.
Hmm.
She for her, this is her experience of having sisters and being a big sister. So it's a very, very unique experience. And she was right at the age where we could have decided to not involve her in things. And yeah, we felt it was really important, just because she, in our minds, was just a little more mature than the average 3-year-old, that we wanted her to be involved. So we made a lot of plans to have her be there in the hospital after Catherine delivered. Yeah, we can talk about that too as we get into this. But yeah, she had a huge part to play in this whole experience. And she really she really carried us along in a lot of ways when we
Yeah.
were just not able to find a way. So she was really great. I'll have to thank her one day for for being the person that she is,
Yeah.
because she just had a immeasurable impact on what we were doing and what we were going through, that she won't understand until she's a mother,
Yeah.
until she's of that age where she's pregnant and all that stuff. So those will be conversations we get to have with her that we'll be able to reflect on. And 20 years from now, we'll be able to look back at this and just explain to her how important she was to our family at that point.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, getting back to the kind of story about getting to the hospital. So we had, spent 4 weeks making plans and flirting the day that we'd be delivering. So we get into the hospital on the day, and the 29th in the afternoon, and It if I remember correctly, it was pretty nice weather at that point. Like, it was nice and sunny. It was a nice sunny day, ironically. But yeah, we check in and kind of get sorted and just tried to just be as relaxed as we could, knowing what was going to happen. The hospital staff were really great. A couple years prior to this, Saskatoon had a brand new hospital built, brand new children's hospital built. So, um, everybody who goes there to deliver a baby gets their own private room with, their own private bathroom, and it's a very nice hospital. So we got this room kind of tucked back in, kind of in the corner of the labor and delivery floor. It was kind of through a set of double doors, and it was kind of by itself. So it was very private,
Mm-hmm.
very very remote from the other business of the labor and delivery floor,
Yeah.
where there's babies being born, all that kind of stuff. So it was very isolated. It was really nice to just kind of have just peace and quiet and not hear all of that. And we got set up with our nursing staff who were great. Yeah, they were just awesome. They obviously, not every nurse probably gets assigned to deal with loss cases in the hospital. It obviously takes a special person to be able to help people through that. And yeah, the staff that we were dealing with were really really excellent. They made us just feel comfortable and just kind of waited on, almost like we're at a restaurant. It was nice. They were awesome. So Catherine, yeah, she got induced and just kind of started the whole
The whole
labor
process.
labor
Yeah.
process. Yeah. So that was the whole. I mean, this was the first time that she had been in labor since Eleanor. So that was, again, just kind of another mind because our only experience of being in labor was when we'd be having a baby that would be alive. So that was different experience. The labor progressed along pretty methodically, and I wouldn't say slowly, but I mean, we went in on the Saturday, which was I think the 28th, and she delivered on the 29th on the
Mm-hmm.
Sunday. So yeah, she was in labor. I'm gonna say for probably 22 hours
Oh wow.
total.
Wow.
So yeah, it was a long time since. No, I guess you could say active labor. I'm not sure. Not
Mm-hmm.
obviously not very long, but she was induced, I think, probably around 2 or 3 o'clock on the 28th, and then delivered closer to I think 12:30 or so. Was I have the times written down here, but around noon, shortly after noon on the 29th. So it was a long labor for what we were kind of going through, but it was a really, for what it was, it was a great experience. The doctors were great. Anytime we wanted to pull the ultrasound machine out and see our babies,
Yeah.
we could. They
Yeah.
were very accommodating that way, and we were able to take some videos and some photos of the last ultrasound that we would ever have with Hazel while she was still alive. So we were able to get some really precious video and photos of that. So that was really great. And that was probably the last ultrasound we had. I think was early in the morning, probably 4 or 5 in the morning on the 29th. So, and Catherine had we decided to have her have an epidural just to help her manage the pain and
Yeah.
whatnot. And
Yeah.
she really wanted to not get one, just because she felt that she wouldn't be able to feel Hazel as much inside her, bouncing and kicking around. So we held off on that as long as we could, and I don't think it ultimately really affected how much she could feel, which was good because she really her goal was to deliver Hazel alive if she could. That was
Yeah.
really that was our plan. That was what really she was really striving for. We just kind of hunkered down for the night there, and I was just doing the dad stuff, helping mom get through
Yeah.
labor and rubbing her back and doing all the things that dads do. And I had my laptop there, so when she was sleeping or resting, I would just play. I was playing StarCraft. She was just trying to be as normal as I could, like
Yeah.
just it allowed me to take my mind off things a little bit. So when she was resting, I would just game for a little bit or go get food, go get something to eat. So just try to normalize the whole scenario as much as I could. And then she delivered right I think after afternoon at right around 12:30. I think where's it? It says 12:26. So there we go. I was pretty close to my estimate.
Very close.
She delivered Violet at 12:26 p.m. on the 29th. Yeah, that was we had her for a little over an hour before Hazel came, so we got to just really take Violet in as much as we could, just without Hazel there, and that was really like I was right there, with her the whole time, so I got to see her deliver Violet and Hazel. I was right there, and she delivered Violet, and we just wrapped her up in the little blanket they give you, and just handed Violet over to Catherine, and just looked at her, and we just started to cry. It was really nothing really prepares you for death in an environment where you're expecting life. You're
Yeah.
in delivery and labor. Your mind says that you're supposed to expect a living baby to come from this, and when you're handed a baby that's not alive, it was really unexpected, and it's just really unusual. It's not something that your mind is really programmed for. Um,
Yeah.
so just holding Violet, she was tiny. She would fit in my hand, in the palm of my hand. She was fairly long. I mean, she wasn't a tiny little short baby, but like her hand, her fingers, her four fingers, they would fit across one of my fingernails if you put them together. Like she was just so tiny, and I just stand there holding her in my hand. That was really hard. That's when you know that this is for real, and this is this is what you've been building up for the last 2 months. This is where it all comes to an end. So
Yeah.
it was really hard, and I remember just Catherine was holding her, and she was just crying, and I just would lean over and just rest my forehead on Catherine's head. We would just cry together, and then, you kind of just block out the rest of the world. Nothing really else matters. You have Violet, Catherine in front of you, and everything else going on is just you're just kind of numb to it, like you're in your
Yeah.
own little bubble together.
Yeah.
And we just were able to hold on to Violet for an hour, and because we had time to plan for this day, we were able to get a birth photographer in,
Mm-hmm.
who was able to photograph the whole event. So they were there, and you kind of forget again. You're in your own little world, but the
Yeah.
photographer was able to get some really precious photos of the moments that we were experiencing, and we have these photos to look back on, and every once in a while you pull them out, and it just takes you right back to that moment, to being at the bedside with Catherine, and just kind of reliving the sadness, just kind of immersing yourself in it.
Yeah.
So it's been 2 years, and it's always nice to look back at those photos, and it just takes you right back to what you were doing. So I'm really thankful that we had time again to plan to have these memories to look back on. So they do help, especially for doing this kind of thing where you're trying to retell your story. So it'd be
Yeah.
much harder without those kinds of things.
It's amazing what the mind does to, like, you always think I will remember this forever,
Yeah,
but it sort of gets hazy on the sides.
yeah, you do forget you
Yeah.
forget things, and it's you know like you say, it just happens. Like in preparing to talk about this experience today, like, you go back through the photographs and you go back through your diaries and you kind of relive things, and you could do that over and over again, and every time you do it you would remember something
Remember.
else, right?
Yeah.
There's always things that you forget that you will remember the next time you think about it. So
Yeah.
it's really hard to summarize these things in like a podcast, because we could talk about this again tomorrow, and I would be able to recall different things and additional stuff that is that I'm unable to remember today. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's yeah, the mind is funny. The mind operates in really funny ways. But
So
yeah, we got to
held
hang on to Violet for an hour, and then yeah, Catherine was able to deliver Hazel, and that was the next big thing. So I think for me, the hardest thing that I've ever seen is my wife trying to, with everything in her, trying to deliver Hazel alive. That was that was the hardest thing I've ever tried to see. It was the most effort I've ever seen somebody put into something, whatever that thing could be. She was wearing a heartbeat monitor, as you do when you're, in the hospital delivering babies, but you know, um, they had disconnected it at that point in time, because I think the doctors and the nurses knew that likely she wasn't going to be able to deliver Hazel alive, but nonetheless, like, Catherine was, when the time came, she just was pushing as hard as she could, as fast as she could to get Hazel out alive, and it was really sad, when she did come out, because she wasn't alive, and I just felt so just heartbroken for Catherine, because this was the only thing that she really wanted, and felt that she had some control
Sure.
over, and she wasn't able to get it, and that was really hard. That was
Yeah.
like one of the hardest things I've ever seen, and I was just so sad for her. And again, I'm not the one who's quote unquote pregnant, and I'm not the one in labor right now, and there's like nothing I could do.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part. One of the hardest parts of being a guy is just you can't do anything. You're
Yeah.
really just there as an observer. You have no effect on any outcome, and it was the most helpless I've felt, I think, in my whole life. It
Yeah.
was it's really hard to describe, and
Yeah.
just how helpless and how sad I felt for Catherine.
Yeah. The fact that here you are standing over the woman you love so dearly with two children, and there's truly nothing you can do to help the situation besides just be there.
Yep.
There's nothing that we're completely lost in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, we
There's
are, and I was
yeah.
it was, yeah, like you said, it was just so I was just so helpless. There's actually nothing to affect the situation
Mhm.
at all, except just be there and just
Yeah.
try and support Catherine as best I could, and again, just try and immerse yourself in the moment, and in the pain and sadness, and just, yeah, that was kind of all I was trying to do, was just be there as
Yeah.
best I could. And I know I didn't do the best job, but I did the best that I could. And if I could go back and do it again, which I would at any point, if I was made the offer, hey, would you go do this again? I would 100% do it again. I would like to think I would be able to be there for her more than I was on that day. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was hard. So yeah, we were sitting there with two babies who were not alive, and that's when it really hits you. We were
Yeah.
this, yeah, yeah. There's nothing that prepares you for that. For the death of a child. Like, you go through life, and there's death that you expect. There's death that's more routine.
Yeah.
There's death that's supposed to happen. Death of pets, or
Yeah.
the death of of old people, like those things all, they're all sad,
Yeah.
but they're expected, they're
It's the
supposed to
natural
happen.
progression,
Yeah,
of life. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's just that's the way it's supposed to be. And when you're sitting there holding your two children who have passed away, it's really that yeah, there's nothing that can really prepare you for that. You really have to find your way through the fog, together. There's no how-to manual for that one.
Mhm.
And we just took turns holding them and just just kind of taking it all in. It was yeah.
I was gonna say, did you get to spend a lot of time with them?
Yeah,
With your daughters?
I think that we did.
It's never enough, but
It's never enough. No, yeah, we'll preface this by saying that there is never enough time.
yeah.
Um, just we've had friends who have given birth to a stillborn baby before, and they were able to spend a significant amount of time with theirs just based on their circumstances. I think it
Yeah.
was a number of days. Um, but in our case, we really only had like a very short window of time, just because of Violet, and just because
Yeah.
she had been, she passed away 7 weeks prior, and
Uh-huh.
her body was already in a you know
Advanced.
a certain state of you know decomposition, right?
Mhm.
When she was born, she was very much still a baby. There was no mistaking that she was a little tiny baby. She had all the facial features. She had the nose and the chin of Catherine and Eleanor, and her hands and little tiny feet. We were able to make little imprints in these little clay hearts, and we were able to take like handprints and footprints, and this was all kind of part of being able to plan for a while what was going to happen. So we were able to put all these things in place, and we were able to make all these memories with them, which was a big part of it. But she was just very much a little tiny baby, and her I got to wash. That's one thing I got to do, was I got to wash both babies after they were born. So I did them one at a time. I did got to do Violet first, and with the help of a nurse who was just kind of holding
Yeah.
holding the babies in this little kind of wash tub on this table. I was able to just kind of wipe off all the blood and just give them their first and only bath. Right? I mean, it
Yeah.
was really a short but really important moment for me as the father, because at that point there was nothing I could do. There's no way for me to really participate in what was
Yeah.
happening. But that was the first thing I was actually able to do as a father with my two girls, was to just give them both baths, and that was really special for me. And I had to be really careful with Violet because her skin was it was decomposing and kind of falling off. If you weren't careful, it would just peel off really
Yeah.
easily, and so you had to be quite careful with her. So I washed her the best that I could, and then I wrapped her up in a towel, gave her back to Catherine, and took Hazel and was able to wash her. And Hazel was, if you had to compare both girls to each other, like Violet, even though she was, a lot more decomposed than Hazel at that point, she still looked very much. You could see a lot of resemblance between her and Catherine and Eleanor. And Hazel was a little different. Like I said earlier, she was very lanky. She had very long limbs and big. She had big hands, but because of the anencephaly, her skull didn't grow over the back of her head, so you could see the exposed, I guess, brain matter. Although it didn't really look like a typical brain. It was
Yeah.
just very red in color. Kind of looked like a tangerine almost, a little bit.
Mm.
Um, and because her skull didn't develop, like her face, like all the features of her face were there, but they were just kind of just not quite in the places that they should be, or they're more
Mm.
or less pronounced than they would have been if there was a skull there. So she she didn't really resemble anybody, so to speak. But the one thing that you could tell on her face was just she just had these super long eyelashes, just like Eleanor and just like Catherine. So that was really cool to see. And she had this cute little nose and little tiny mouth and chin. So she I mean, I guess if you had to share the photographs we have of our girls with other people, they might seem scary in a way, but they're just our girls. That's just what they
Yeah.
are to us, right? And they're,
Yeah.
they're not scary. They're there's not many people that we show them to, because not many people would appreciate what they
Yeah.
are, but not many people would look at them and just see someone's child. They would see the deformity and the unfamiliar nature of the way they looked, right? And it
Yeah.
would it would scare them away, I think. But I look at them and they were just beautiful. They were
Yeah.
two beautiful little girls, and they weren't perfect. Our girls were not perfect. If they were perfect, they would still be here.
Yeah.
But they were very beautiful, beautiful little girls.
The love you have for them is not changed by
No, it won't.
that. It's
No,
they're your beautiful, precious girls.
yeah,
Yeah.
they are, and you're right. That will never change, and I will always view them as our beautiful little girls. and
Yeah.
and yeah, just being able to spend time with them and do the dad thing with them, bath them, and we got to throw them on the scale and weigh them, like, and measure them like every other parent gets to do right after they deliver. So we got to do that, and like the staff were all really great and helping us do that, because they're very delicate in moving them
Yeah.
around. You didn't want to make them, honestly, like, rip off a limb or something, because Violet was very, very delicate, so we had to be careful. So
Yeah.
they were very helpful with that. And then after we weighed them and bathed them, we just wrapped them up in new towels, and Catherine got to hold them. And at that point, we just kind of waited for Eleanor to show up, to kind of just be part of the next phase,
Mhm.
or I guess like the grieving phase. I guess if there was a grieving phase, you were kind of grieving for the whole time.
Yeah.
Since basically week 20, we were grieving in some
Yeah.
fashion. But to kind of start that next phase, we were just kind of waiting for Eleanor to show up. And we have a really, really great photo of her when she first got there. She walked in the room, and she could tell that something was different. There was just something in the air, something in the room that just made it seem like not like a normal place to be. And I remember I just kind of knelt down next to her and put my arm around her. We were just both looking at Catherine on the bed, holding the girls, and just told her to go. Asked, "Do you want to meet your sisters?" And she says, "Yeah." And she walks over, and she was carrying two little bunnies that she had picked out for them. We had her pick out some bunnies for them, so she walked over and got to meet them for the first time. And that was really great to have her there, because she was, again, just such a huge part of our experience. And it was really important to us to have her be a part of her sister's lives, and in the biggest way that she could.
Yeah.
So she came, and we got to make a bunch of memories with her. Take the handprints and the impressions that we did. We were all done with Eleanor there, and we got to dress the babies in little clothing that was available at the hospital. And Catherine, she likes to sew, and she had sewn some little hats for
Mm.
the girls before we went into the hospital to deliver. But they ended up being just way too big, because while we thought that we made them small enough, we really,
Yeah.
they weren't they weren't small. You don't know how small they are until you're holding them, right? They're so tiny. So we were able to pick out some clothing and some hats for the girls, and Eleanor got to dress them up and essentially just treat them as if they were just little tiny dolls. She got
Yeah.
to hold them and move them around and take pictures with them and essentially just play with them like they were
Yeah.
just like little dolls. And it maybe seems kind of strange, that you're playing with a dead body, but
Well, she's a big
it's
sister.
she's
Yeah.
a big sister. Yeah,
Mm.
to me it wasn't weird at all. But when you say it out loud, oh yeah, she was you know playing with her two dead sisters like they were just dolls. Well, to her that's what they were. Like
Yeah.
she doesn't know the difference. She has no frame of reference. So
Yeah.
she was great. I think she loved every minute of it. It was really awesome.
The fact that she was part of the decisions. She was part of this, in all honesty. How much choice does a 3-year-old have in family planning?
I
But
mean,
she
not
was,
to be honest, not much, but
yeah. But she was
she was there.
part of the grief, part of the excitement, part of the everything,
Yeah,
and that she got to spend time with her siblings, with her
yeah,
parents as a family.
yeah,
Our oldest daughter got to meet our son, and we had no clue how she would react to, seeing her dead brother. But she has a special bond with him,
hmm
and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see her interact with him, and she still does, even though he's on the other side of death. She
yeah,
still talks to him. She still has a personal relationship with him.
yeah. And
And it's,
Eleanor does too. Like not a day goes by where we don't talk about
yeah,
Hazel and Violet in some way. Like they were here for a very short time, but they're a part of our story. They're a part of our family,
yeah,
and they aren't going anywhere.
yeah,
And they're just always going to be there. So
yeah,
she has these bunnies that she brought the girls that we kept afterwards, and just so every once in a while we'll take the car for a drive, and I'll take the bunnies and put them in the back seat and take the girls for a drive because they never got to go for a ride and do all those things that they should have been able to do. And Eleanor, she has these little plates, little dinner plates that we put out for them once in a while when we're having lunch or supper. We'll set the table for the girls, which was an idea that we kind of came up with. You know, being in the military, a very important part of their traditions and customs is to honor the dead, honor the ones that have fallen
yeah,
before you. And whenever they have a formal dinner, they always set a table seat for those who can't be there, for those who have fallen. So that's kind of where the idea came from, was to be able to set a spot for the girls who can't be with us. So that's one small way that we are able to include them in what we do on a daily basis for the most part. So it's really nice to be able to do that, and like you said, have her have this connection to her siblings, right? That is very special to her. It's really beautiful to see that.
yeah. The way your family is unique, but it's still a beautiful family.
Yeah,
You know,
it is. And it when people ask, like, oh, how many kids you got? It's one of those questions where it's like, well, well, what do you mean? Like you gotta
it's a very
that's really
complicated.
it's a complicated question, like when
Yeah,
someone asks, oh, how many kids you got? Well, the easy answer is, two. I got
yeah,
two kids because we now have a newborn. But if I'm really gonna be honest with you, like I had four. I have four kids. And two aren't currently with us. And I don't often get asked that question, but initially in the months after all this happened, it really didn't want to open up about that to other people and
yeah,
explain. Just come out of the gate with, "Oh, hey, I have two kids, or that are alive, and two that are not." Right? Because that's for some people that's a very like, oh, tuck and run kind of
yeah,
conversation where you can
yeah,
really shut down any kind of communication instantly with a comment like that. But over time, I've just learned to not worry about how other people feel about what we're going through, and I'll talk about it quite openly with
Yeah.
people who are interested in asking and listening. So that
Yeah.
was kind of a process afterwards that has taken some getting used to, but yeah, it just changes your whole perspective on what family is and what family means to people.
Yeah.
And we have a very unique family, and we've been through a very unique thing. When you go through something like that, you realize that while it is very painful and awful to go through, that a lot of people have gone through similar things, similar
Yeah.
losses and whatnot. So you do learn that you're not alone
Mm-hmm.
in your grief, but it is difficult to find people to really have those kinds of conversations with, like this, for example. Like
Yeah.
this is a very unique conversation that not many people that I know would be interested in having. And it's a really great way to just honor our girls and cherish cherish the experience. So
Yeah.
it's really nice to talk about it.
It is one of those situations where, as you said, you don't want to diminish the memory and the love by making it so brash and so out there. You sort of want to
Hmm.
cherish it. You want to sort of safeguard it.
Yeah,
But then you also want to say, hey, my children are so important to me. I do want to tell the world. I do want to share it.
yeah,
And there's sort of a dichotomy of, do I keep it sacred? Do I keep it personal, or do I open it up? And sometimes it's hard. Like some weeks, some days I'm very guarded, and some days I am very open about it. So
yeah. Me too.
yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on the day and who you're talking to about
Yeah.
really how much you open up about it. That's
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, I suppose I'll get back to the story because
Yeah.
it's not over. So yeah, we have Eleanor come to the hospital. We do all these wonderful memory making things, and we have a bunch of lovely keepsakes and photographs of all that. So it's really great to have that. And she was around. Eleanor was with us. I'm gonna say for 2 or 3 hours. So she got to spend 3 hours or so with her sisters, which
Mm-hmm.
is a very short
Yeah.
time to spend
It's
with
a
your
short time.
siblings. But it was the most precious and well used time that she could have had with them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look back at the time that we had with Hazel and Violet and having our family together with them, while it was very short and I wish that we had more time, we couldn't have done anything more. We did it all. We did everything. There wasn't a second that was wasted with them. And like you said earlier, like there's never enough time. You could never have enough time, and we really made the best of it that we could. So like that night after Eleanor left, we just tried to have a normal night. We had supper and just spent our time holding Hazel and Violet. We wrapped them up in a blanket together, and they were made them hold hands and just kind of kept them together. And there was this little bed kind of thing. It was cooled so that it kind of delays
Yeah.
the decomposition process a little bit. So we would keep them in that as much as we could to kind of keep them cool, so that we could just have them as long as we could. So
Yeah.
we just spent the evening together, holding them and taking pictures and holding their hands and kissing them and all that, and it was really beautiful. And yeah, I wish I could go back and do it again. It was really great. And one thing I will say about Hazel that I kind of neglected to mention, when she was born, Catherine, like I said, had really wanted to try and deliver her alive,
Mm-hmm.
and wasn't able to by any standard metric. But when she was delivered, they placed her on Catherine's chest basically right away and kind of
Yeah.
wrapped her up.
Yeah.
And I was able to just take my finger and kind of place it just in Hazel's left hand as she was sitting on Catherine's chest. And I did feel just the tiniest little squeeze on my finger of her left hand, and I told Catherine that, while she maybe wasn't breathing, I do think that she did die in your arms.
Yeah.
That was a really special moment, and that's not something I tell everybody because I think that's just a really one of those things that you can just keep with you forever and
Mhm.
just bring it out once in a while when you just want to share something really special with your wife. So I
Yeah.
hold on to that one pretty close, and I'll tell it to most people. So it was just the faintest little squeeze. And I'll never forget that. I think of all the experience, I think that's one of the things that stands out the most was just that little squeeze on my finger.
Very special for you. Very special.
Yeah, it was. It was. And yeah, we just spent the rest of the night with the girls, and in taking as much as or as making the most out of the time you have. Like we almost didn't want to sleep
Hmm.
because it's like we're wasting time.
Yeah.
Like why sleep when we could be awake? And I think we ended up going to bed. It was late, like probably after midnight, and I'm just like, we gotta we gotta go to sleep. We've been up for probably 24 hours at that point, and
Yeah.
we're both just
Fit.
tired as new
Yeah.
parents would be after being in labor. So
Physically, mentally taxed from
oh yeah,
all the stress, and yeah.
exhausted in all the ways,
Yeah.
physically, emotionally. So we were able to get some sleep and woke up the next morning and kind of wrapped them up and just kind of got ready to go. One of the options um, that we were able to kind of plan for ahead of time was what we were going to do with their bodies
Uh-huh.
once we were done, once our time with them was done. So one of the options was to have someone come to the hospital and with I think a box, just like a literal box. They would come to the room and you would just place them in the box, close the lid, and they would just take them away. um, and I thought that was completely insane. Um, Catherine asked me weeks before if I wanted to do that. And I said, absolutely not. I'm gonna drop them off at the funeral home myself. And
Yeah.
that wasn't even an option in my view to have somebody come and take my daughters away from me like that. I was gonna do that on my own terms. And so that was something that we had decided to do and that we both really cherished that decision to again spend as much time with them as we could, which meant taking them to the funeral home. So that next morning, we wrapped them up in a blanket that my mom had sewn for them, and um, we had a couple little tiny bunnies that Eleanor had given them. So we gave them their little bunnies and wrapped them up, and we left the hospital. And that was a really strange experience leaving the hospital because it was the first time that Catherine got to carry her babies out into the world, around other people,
Yeah.
and they weren't alive. Like before she was pregnant, had a belly, but nobody, you can't tell something's
Yeah.
wrong. But now all of a sudden we're gonna walk out of our hospital room and down the hallway of this labor and delivery floor, surrounded by other mothers and their babies, and we're going to be carrying our two dead children out of the hospital. So it kind of reminded me of leaving the ultrasound clinic for the first time.
Yeah.
Just we just want to get to the car, just look down at the ground and don't look at anybody, don't look at any other mom with a baby, and just get to the car.
Mm.
So we quickly and quietly made our way to the car, and before we left the room, the nurses, I think they made sure that nobody was out in the hallway. They just kind of locked the place down for 5 minutes as we left, until we got to the elevator and off the floor. So it was really good. It was a really private exit, and we weren't really disturbed by anybody. So we got to just sadly walk out of the hospital with our two children, and get into the car, and Catherine looks at me and she says, like, what am I gonna do? I'm like, what do you mean what are you gonna do? Like, what do I do with them? I'm like, well, you're just gonna sit in the car and you're gonna hold them. Like,
Yeah.
you're just gonna hold on to them. And like, she's like, well, do I put them in a car seat? And I'm just like, no, no, you don't put them in a car seat. You hold on to them. Like,
Yeah.
and it's one of those things you don't really think of until you're in
Yeah.
there doing it. You're like, do I put my dead kids in their car seats? Well, it's
Yeah.
just, no, it's, and I kind of chuckled at the time. I'm like, no, you're gonna hold on to them because what else are you gonna do? There's no need to put them in a car seat. And that
Yeah.
was just a moment I remember just very vividly because it's just one of those things you just completely don't expect to have to think about,
Yeah.
right?
It's not
So
normal. It's not.
it's
It's
not
not the.
normal at all.
Yeah.
No, not normal in any way. So yeah, we hop in the car and she puts her seatbelt on and hand her the girls and we just leave the hospital in our car and the we make our way across the river because the hospital is right on the river in Saskatoon. So we cross over this bridge right at the basically the entrance to the hospital, and the funeral home that we took the girls to is right across the river. So it's like a 5 minute drive, not even. So we drive across the bridge. It's like a beautiful sunny day. We get to the funeral home and we park, and um, and that's when it started to really hit me just with the sadness because like I knew that this would be the last time that I get to see them and
Yeah.
hold them. And I think the most difficult part for me was, you know, we're sitting there parked in the parking lot and we decide to, we're sitting there looking at them for a few minutes and we finally decide to just kind of get up and walk into the funeral home. So I open the door and get out and I walk over and I let Catherine out of the car and she's carrying the girls and we walk up to the funeral home. I just ring the doorbell like I'm at someone's house, and that's when I started to just start to cry just kind of uncontrollably because this is it.
Yeah.
This is where we have to say goodbye.
It's the beginning of the
And
finale.
yeah, this is the end. This is where it ends, and that was the hardest part for me. The most difficult part was just walking in the door, and it seemed like forever for someone to answer the door. I'm sure it was like 5 seconds, but it just seemed like it took forever. Time kind of stood still. Yeah, it was so hard just to wait there knowing that your time with them was going to come to an end. But the door finally opened and carried them inside, and they walked us in. They were very good as a funeral home would be, but they walked us in and gave us in this little private room. And then we sat there with the girls for 20 minutes or so and got to say our last goodbyes before before we finally gave them over to the funeral home to have them cremated. And like you said, there's never enough time. We could have sat there for a week
Yeah.
or for a month with them, and it wouldn't have been enough. But all things come to an end, including our time with them. So we just decided that now was the time. And the last memory I have of the girls, the last visual memory, is just Catherine giving them just each a kiss on the forehead before she handed them off to the staff, and that was it. That was the hardest part for me, just saying goodbye
Yeah.
forever. Yeah, that was really hard, and I never told that to anybody. I'll never forget that. And it was just the most beautiful and sad moment of my whole life.
It is so unnatural for us as parents to know that we will never see physically our child again.
Yeah,
And even though you've had weeks and months to prepare yourself for this moment and this time, it is still the most unfathomable situation, unfathomable scenario.
Yeah, it really is. I don't. My vocabulary isn't developed well enough to find a word that
No.
can describe what that is like. It's really something you have to go through yourself to understand, and I hope no one ever has to do that. Unless you go through that, it's really hard to grasp
Yeah.
what that feels like. It was really hard. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. It's
Yeah.
just to have to say goodbye to them.
Such sweet sorrow.
Yeah, yeah, it was. And then we just got up and left. We took another few minutes and used up some more of the free Kleenex, and then we got up and left. Drove home, and yeah, it was a very somber drive home. Eleanor was home with Catherine's mom, and the rest of the day was kind of a blur. And yeah, we had them cremated. I believe their bodies were cremated on I think it was Thursday or Friday, because we took them in on the Monday, so it was a bit of a wait. And on the day that they were cremated, it was raining that day, fittingly enough. At about the time that the funeral home said that they would be cremated, they, we looked outside, and there was these two, double rainbows outside. So I'm not a I'm not a religious person by any sense of the word. I do believe that there are many things about this world and the universe that we don't understand, and I think that that was some kind of a sign, just from them. So it was really beautiful to see that. And then we on the day of that we got to go pick up their ashes from the home. We took the Mustang and picked them up in that. That was their first ride in the Mustang, so that was pretty special. So I don't think ever be able to sell that car, to be honest. Unfortunately, um,
Well, it has held such wonderful people.
it has, yeah, it really has. And we got to pick them up in the car and brought them home. And on the day that we picked up their ashes, there's another double rainbow, and I was able to take some time off of work following their delivery. So part of our, I guess, the grieving process that we did was we planted. We have a garden in our backyard, and we have a bunch of garden. It's a raised garden, bunch of
Hmm.
garden boxes that we built. So we kind of rearranged it, did some renos, and we built a raised box, and we planted a tree in their honor. So it's an oak leaf ash tree, and we didn't know anything about it when we
Yeah.
went and picked it out. We just went to this place to buy trees, and we just saw this one, and we liked it. We thought it was just a really nice tree, and it was the right size, so we brought it home. And I guess suppose Catherine looked afterwards at what an ash tree is a symbol of, and I guess it's a symbol of like children or something. So that's kind of the rough meaning or symbolism of an ash tree. So that was kind of a neat little circumstance. Like, what are the odds if you pick out a tree that symbolizes children or
Yeah.
something like that? So that was cool. So we planted this tree, and we had a nice little kind of ceremony afterwards, kind of honoring the girls. And while we were preparing for that little ceremony, Catherine's cousin from Calgary, they came out unexpectedly, just as we were kind of just working on the backyard, getting it all ready and whatnot. And they just showed up and just said that they just wanted to come and be with us because they know what we were going through. And that was a really nice gesture, really unexpected. Just again, they didn't do anything. They just showed
Yeah.
up and were just there, and just another way to just love somebody is just to show up and be there. So that was a really nice surprise. And we planted the tree. It was in the fall, so it really didn't get a chance to grow. But the next year, next spring, when the tree flowered or whatever, it only flowered on. So we hung. Oddly enough, we hung. We made a bunch of decorations for the tree, My mom made a couple little stars with their names on them, and one for each girl. So they each got a branch on this tree. And so we hung this all up on in that fall, and then the next spring when the tree was growing, it only flowered on those two branches, one spot on each branch. So again, I'm not exactly a spiritual person, but I mean, if you're going to call that some kind of a coincidence,
Yeah.
I would say that's probably not doing it enough justice to say that's just a
Yeah.
coincidence. So it was really special. You know, they're out there somewhere. They're still with us, doing whatever they're doing, watching over us, making double rainbows and making buds grow only on certain branches on
Yeah.
trees. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
The tender mercies of the universe reaching out and
Yeah,
showing you.
yeah. It's really special. So that's our little ironically enough, it's our little happy place in the backyard. Whenever they have their birthdays, we celebrate their birthdays. You know, we make them a cake, and we usually go outside and eat by the tree on their birthday. And whenever me and Kat want to just go, have a glass of wine or something, we'll go sit back in the yard by our tree. We have a bench there, and we'll just sit with the girls and be with them. So it's really nice. So I don't know if we'll ever be able to sell this house because we'll have to
Yeah.
take the tree with us. But yeah, it's just
Yeah.
a really great way to kind of cement their lives into
Yeah.
our story.
Yeah.
Because I we just didn't want to forget them, and it's so
Yeah.
easy to forget them. And that's kind of the end of the story. That's essentially it from start to finish.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of I mean, we could keep talking for hours about just all kinds of things that I remember, and even talking to you now, like there's things I remember. And I know that Catherine was very worried that she, would miss a lot of detail and miss a lot of things. And I had that same fear, just not being able to honor them the best way I could with this story. So I hope that this paints a really accurate picture for anyone who's going to be listening and who's gone through similar things or will go through similar experiences. And I hope I didn't leave anything out. I
No.
won't know till after, though.
It is very apparent, Dave, that you are a loving, proud father of 4 daughters now,
Yeah.
but especially to Violet and to Hazel. Your love for them shines forth. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. It really was. It's just nice to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. It's nice to talk about our children.
It is, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.